Hi! Right, today we're going to read some more of Days with Frog and Toad. Remember we talked about how Frog and Toad is a chapter book. We talked about the table of contents. This is where you have lots of little stories inside one book. And then you have the contents that tells you what the name of the little story is, or the chapter, what page it starts on. So this is all of the little stories or the chapters inside this book. That's the page that they start on. Today we are going to read two. We're going to read The Kite and Shivers. The Kite starts on page 16 and The Shivers starts on page 28. The Kite. Frog and Toad went out to fly a kite. They went to a large meadow where the wind was strong. "Our kite will fly up and up," said Frog. "It will fly all the way up to the top of the sky." "Toad," said Frog, "I will hold the ball of string. You hold the kite and run." Toad ran across the meadow. He ran as fast as his short legs could carry him. The kite went up in the air. It fell to the ground with a bump. Toad heard laughter. 3 robins were sitting in a bush. "The kite will not fly," said the robins. "You may as well give up." Toad ran back to Frog. "Frog," said Toad, "this kite will not fly. I give up." "We must make a second try," said Frog. "Wave the kite over your head. Perhaps that will make it fly." Toad ran back across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head. The kite went up in the air, then fell down with a thud. "What a joke," said the robins. "That kite will never get off the ground." That's not very encouraging birds. Toad ran back to Frog. "This kite is a joke," he said. "It will never get off the ground." "We have to make a third try," said Frog. "Wave the kite over your head and jump up and down. Perhaps that will make it fly." Toad ran across the meadow again. He waved the kite over his head. He jumped up and down. The kite went up in the air and crashed down into the grass. "That kite is junk," said the robins. "Throw it away and go home." Toad ran back to Frog. "This kite is junk," he said. "I think we should throw it away and go home, Toad." "Toad," said Frog, "we need one more try. Wave the coat over your head, jump up and down, and shout, 'Up, kite, up!'" Toad ran across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head. He jumped up and down. He shouted, "Up, kite, up!" The kite flew into the air. It climbed higher and higher. "We did it!" cried Toad. "Yes," said Frog. "If a running try did not work, and a running and waving try did not work, and a running, waving, and jumping try did not work, I knew that a running, waving, jumping, and shouting try just had to work." The robins flew out of the bush, but they could not fly as high as the kite. Frog and Toad sat and watched their kite. It seemed to be flying at the top of the sky. All right. So now we're at page 28. We're going to start Shivers. And it's the same book, but it's different stories. Okay. Shivers. The night was cold and dark. "Listen to the wind howling in the trees," said Frog. "What a fine time for a ghost story." Toad moved deeper into his chair. "Toad," asked Frog, "don't you like to be scared? Don't you like to feel the shivers?" "I'm not too sure," said Toad. Frog made a fresh pot of tea. He sat down and began a story. "When I was small," said Frog, "my mother and father and I went out for a picnic. On the way home, we lost our way. My mother was worried. 'We must get home,' she said. 'We do not want to meet the old dark frog.' 'Who is that?' I asked. 'A terrible ghost,' said my father. 'He comes out at night and eats little frog children for supper.'" Toad sipped his tea. "Frog," he asked, "are you making this up?" "Maybe yes, and maybe no," said Frog. "My mother and father went to search for a path," said Frog. "They told me to wait until they came back. I sat under a tree and waited. The woods became dark. I was afraid. Then I saw two huge eyes. It was the old dark frog." "He was standing near me." "Frog," asked Toad, "did this really happen?" "Maybe it did, and maybe it didn't," said Frog. Frog went on with the story. The dark frog pulled a jump rope out of his pocket. "I am not hungry now," said the dark frog. "I have eaten too many tasty frog children. But after I jump rope 100 times, I will be hungry again. Then I will eat you." The dark frog tied one end of the rope to a tree. "Turn for me," he shouted. I turned the rope for the dark frog. He jumped 20 times. "I'm beginning to get hungry," said the dark frog. He jumped 50 times. "I'm getting hungrier," said the dark frog. He jumped 90 times. "I'm very hungry now," said the dark frog. "What happened then?" asked Toad. "I had to save my life," said Frog. "I ran around the tree with the rope and tied up the old dark frog. He roared and screamed. Ah! I ran away fast. I found my mother and father," said Frog. "We came safely home." "Frog," asked Toad, "was that a true story?" "Maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't," said Frog. Frog and Toad sat close by the fire. They were scared. The teacups shook in their hands. They were having the shivers. It was a good, warm feeling. All right. The end for today. We'll come back and read the rest of this book, Days with Frog and Toad, another time. I hope that you're having a good day.